चाय पिला दो। ये कर रहे हैं। कौन पढ़ा था? पुरानी यादें ताज़ा हो गई। हम्म। पानी पिला दो बस। Okay, so good evening, everyone. So I believe in my last class I had done till IDR, Indian Depository Receipts. Okay. So today we will be covering derivatives and other instruments. You can give the heading derivatives. So did I talk about futures contracts with you? While teaching inflation, did I talk about futures contract? Said na? That futures contract, at times they are banned out in the market, and futures contract have the potential to influence current set of prices. बता था कि कैसे इनफॉर्मल टर्म्स में भी एग्जिस्ट करता है फॉरवर्ड्स में, और फॉर्मल इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स भी एग्जिस्ट करता है. So futures contract is a very good example of derivative instruments. I mean, typically what you will find in terms of derivatives is that this is just a piece of paper, and this paper basically has no value of its own. Unlike gold or shares of a company, does not have any intrinsic value of its own, but its value is entirely based on the underlying asset, right? And I believe I formulated a contract for tomatoes or potatoes. I think tomatoes के लिए बनाया था ना. तो डिपेंड करता है कि हम टमेटोज को कैसे पोर्ट्रे कर रहे हैं मार्केट में, दैट व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन ओवर द क्रॉप ऑफ टोमेटो इन द मार्केट. एंड इफ आई एम एबल टू क्रिएट दैट speculation that futuristic prices will remain high, then definitely this will lead to more demand of that contract, and thereby the underlying asset is influencing the price of the contract itself, right? So derivatives को हम define भी कर सकते हैं. Derivatives are instruments, right? Now derivatives are financial instruments. Derivatives are financial instruments whose value depends on the value of some underlying asset. Asset can be anything here. Asset can be shares, right? In fact, based on what the underlying asset is, we have different types of derivatives, right? So for example, when the underlying asset is your shares, we call it as financial futures or financial derivatives. Similarly, I can also place different set of commodities as underlying asset. जैसे मैंने बनाया था, है ना? So I can place agricultural commodities, that will be called as agri derivatives. I can place metals here. Steel place कर दो, iron place कर दो, aluminium place कर दो, right? So that will become metal derivatives. या combined हम कह सकते हैं commodity derivatives या commodity futures, right? Then I can also place, लिख दो commodities, shares, commodities. Commodities में दोनों आ सकता है, agricultural commodities, metals, natural resources, etc. And you can also place currency here. So any foreign currency आ जाएगा तो फिर वो currency derivatives बन जाएगा, currency futures. एक एग्जाम्पल लिखो. Example you can mention in terms of futures contract. So you can take the example of futures contract. Right, so I have buy, or I can place it in terms of sell, right, these many kgs, या आप कह सकते हो this much quantity of any commodity, any shares also, shares भी लिख सकते हो, shares of this company at the rate of this price on this date, right. So यहाँ पर price लिख दूँ, यहाँ quantity लिख दूँ, right, और यहाँ date लिख दूँ. This will become my futures contract, right. So futures contract will basically have three things. It will have a specified quantity, it will have a specified price, and third thing, it will have specified date. And this date majorly is going to be a futuristic date. So I can say buy these many shares of Tata Motors on this date at this price. So this becomes a futures contract. तीन चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट है जिसके बेसिस पे हम डेरिवेटिव कह रहे हैं इस इंस्ट्रूमेंट को. Three things are most important. First, there has to be some specified quantity. Second, there has to be some specified price. Third, there has to be some specified date. Date has to be futuristic date. Futuristic date है तो futuristic contract हो गया, खत्म. Futures contract. Right? Now, based on the underlying asset, I can have different set of futures contract. Next line में लिखना, based on different types of underlying asset, we have different set of futures, we have different set of derivative instruments. We have different set of derivative instruments. The very first one that we have is financial futures. Financial futures. Financial futures. Financial futures में underlying asset has to be, लिख देना, underlying asset shall be shares, equity. So I take a page where I can say buy, let's say 1,000 shares of Tata Motors on, कोई भी डेट डाल दो, राइट, आज क्या है, 6th of February 2023 at the rate of, let's say, rupees 120 per share. Similarly, I can also have a sell contract here. Sell, let's say 1,000 shares of, again, Tata Motors on any date that you want to say, let's say 10th of February 2023 at the rate of, let's say, rupees 125 per share. So ये बना मेरा buy financial future, this becomes my sell financial future. So what is the underlying asset? The underlying asset is shares or equity. Now, can you compare this with equity? Can you compare this with equity? Equity से compare कर सकते हैं आप इसे? In terms of risk and returns? नहीं है? So I see one thing here, right? See, this is a futuristic date, and thereby I believe this is nothing, this is not short-term speculation, this is definitely long-term speculation. Look, if I have to typically compare it with a situation in a race course, right? For example, let's say I take you to a race course and I tell you that, okay, we have to bet on a horse, right? Which is going to which is going to participate in today's race. Let's say half an hour later, right? So you are basically placing your bet in terms of equity. Similar situation, okay, na? Placing a bet on equity today. For example, out of all the automobile companies, I'm picking this one company that I believe has the capacity to grow out in the longer term. Right? Now, compare the situation with financial future. So I'm saying not today, the race is going to take place 2 months later. Now bet on a horse. So you're not just betting amongst the horses, you're also betting against time. Yes or no? So risk definitely increases. Risk definitely increases, and so does return. Right? Compared to equity, this is more riskier, and thereby chances of returns may also increase out. Compared to equity, this is a riskier instrument, but may definitely give us more returns. तो डेट पे होगी आज आज नहीं, तभी तो कह रहे हैं रिस्क है। क्यों कह रहे हैं रिस्क है? आपने उस घोड़े का टिकट तो आज ही खरीद लिया पैसे देके, तो डिपेंड करेगा ऑन दैट पर्टिकुलर डेट. ऑन दैट पर्टिकुलर डेट द प्राइस ऑफ द शेयर कैन बी लोअर ऑल्सो, बट यू विल हैव टू कंपल, देयर इज अ कंपल्शन, यू विल हैव टू execute the contract. Yes or no? Similarly, यहाँ पर sell के terms में the prices में वो very much higher, but you'll have to sell it at a lower cost, right? And thereby there are chances of, higher returns also, and thereby riskier also. What वही वाली बात है ना, that if you are, permutation combination everything is correct and you are able to predict out, okay, that this horse is going to win, right? You have purchased the ticket at a very low cost today. कुछ सोच के देखो ना कि डिमांड बेस पर तो डिमांड है ही नहीं, thereby this may go in your favor, but if the prediction goes wrong, then returns may also go down similarly. ठीक है? So this is my first you can say type of derivative instrument in the form of financial futures, right? Second instrument that I have is in the form of options. Options. In fact, you will be able to relate this with your, remember repurchase options, repo rate. You had something in the form of repurchase options, repo rate, है ना? ये वही है, वहीं से आ रही है कहानी, repurchase, right? बस यहाँ पर क्या है, repurchase नहीं है, ये simply option है, right? So in the case of options, the underlying asset is again your shares or equity only. Shares or equity only. But there is something extra in options. What is that something extra? See, options basically give the holder the right to buy without any obligation to buy, right? So if you have an option compared to a financial future, right? In financial future, there was a compulsion that you need to execute the order on that date. But in the case of option, you have the right. If you want, you can execute the order. But if you don't want to, you can always call off the deal or you can put off the deal, right? So this is giving the holder a right to buy or the right to sell without any obligation to buy or sell, right? So लिख दो ये भी. Write down. Options, it is a contract that gives the right to buy or the right to sell the right to buy or the right to sell without any obligation without any obligation to buy or sell the underlying asset, but without any obligation buy or sell the underlying asset of the futures contract of the futures contract. So stop. In this we have futures, in this futures contract we have option price also. Change the line and write. In this instrument we have option price. Basically, option price is bared by that entity for whom the right exists, but without any obligation. Right? So, for example, I discussed with you this buy financial future and sell financial future. So, how do I convert it into option? I just need to add one more line to this, right? So, I can say buy these many shares, 1,000 shares of Tata Motors on this particular date at this price, and the buyer has the option to call off the deal. To call off the trade. Similarly, for my sell option, I can simply say sell these many shares of Tata Motors on this particular date at this particular price, right? And the seller has the option. Buyer ना call off करता है deal, seller क्या करता है? Seller basically puts off the deal, right? Has the option to put off the deal, put off the trade, put off the trade. So on that basis, this is called as call option, where option price has been bared by which entity? Buyer, right? So buyer needs to bear this option price, and this is my put option. जैसा दिख रहा है वैसे ही है. Call off the deal, so call option. Put off the deal, so put option. And who is going to bear the option price here? Seller is going to bear the option price. Seller is going to bear the option price here. So you can mention this also in a line. Once you have written all of this down, you can mention this in a line. So you can say call option gives the holder the right to buy the underlying asset but not an obligation. To buy the underlying asset. but not an obligation to buy the underlying asset. Similarly, call option gives the holder the right to sell. Similarly, put option gives the holder the right to sell, but not any obligation. But not any an obligation kar do, but not an obligation to sell the underlying asset. But not an obligation to sell the underlying asset. ये भी लिख देना, option price shall be bared by buyer in call option. Option price will be bared by buyer in call option, and in put option it will be bared by the seller. It will be bared by the seller. Remind you, I can combine these two together. I can even combine these two together, right? मैं ये भी कर सकता हूँ. जैसे हमने यहाँ लिखा ना, buy this much, right? So instead of writing buy, I can write down both the things. I can write down buy slash sell 1,000 shares of Tata Motors on this date at this price, and the buyer, or instead of this I can write down buyer slash seller has the option to call or put off the deal, put off the trade, right? So I can have an option in which both the things exist, right? In this, the option price shall be bared by both buyer and seller, both. जिसके लिए option भाई जिसको facility मिल रही है वही तो bear करेगा, right? So in this, the option price shall be bared by both the entities. इसका नाम क्या है? What is this called? कुछ कहने की जरूरत ही नहीं. This is simply option. Specify वहां करें ना जिसके लिए था, अभी तो दोनों के लिए. So this is simply called option. ये समझ आया? Great. Let me take you to the third instrument. Third instrument that I have is my commodity derivatives or commodity futures. Commodity derivatives or commodity futures. So the underlying asset here will be any commodity, right? So commodity can be in the form of some agricultural commodity, and thereby these derivatives will be called agri derivatives. And we have already written down where these are traded. These are traded on NCDEX, National Commodities Derivatives Exchange of India, right? And these commodities can also be in the form of metals or even natural resources. These will be called as metal derivatives or whatever. जैसे आपने PNG का बना दिया, PNG derivative, right? And these are traded at MCX, Multi Commodity Exchange of India. Multi Commodity Exchange of India. Exchange क्या है? Market ही तो है ना, marketplace है बस. Multi Commodity Exchange of India. Multi Commodity Exchange of India. typically, how would a commodity derivative look like? I think I have already drawn this for you. So I say buy, let's say 1000 kgs of, let's say potato on this particular date at this particular price, right? This becomes my commodity derivative. Specifically saying this is my agri derivative, right? कुछ भी लिख सकते हो आप. You can even take sell here. Instead of buy, you can even take sell here. Sell this much kgs of potato on this price or at this price on this date. Now, which set of entities do you think are engaging into this? दो ends पर कौन है? Buyer and seller कौन है? Understand the nature of the instrument. Now, why do you think we have these instruments? We have these instruments in order to ensure there is smooth supply of commodities in the market, right? So seller कौन होगा? Seller would be my farmers, right? And buyers would be wholesalers or intermediaries, right? So why are these wholesalers or intermediaries participating into this instrument? They are participating into this instrument because it allows them to gain from speculation. This instrument is helping them to gain from speculation. So this I understand that the intermediary or wholesaler is participating in this. But why is my poor farmer participating in this? वो क्यों participate कर रहा है? उसके लिए क्या gain है? Does he have any gain? कैसे करेगा रिस्क फैक्टर कम? कैसे प्राइसेस में चेंज आएगा? जैसे इमेजिन करो, राइट? लेट्स से आई हैव 3 क्रॉप्स. आई हैव लेट्स से क्रॉप X, I have crop Y and I have crop Z. Imagine कर लेता हूँ, this is my Kharif, this is my Rabi, this is my Zaid crop. And let's say, for that matter, let me assume that the expected price change, in these 3 crops is in the following manner. So I believe that the price change here can be 20%. Can be anything, plus minus कुछ भी हो सकता है. It can go up or it may come down, right? It is entirely based on the seasonal factors. If there is overproduction, the prices may come down. If there is underproduction, the prices may shoot up, right? Obviously, I mean, seasonal variation एक में होगा. It will not happen for both the seasons, right? In fact, if there is too much of variation in one season, in winters, there would be normal crop, right? So seasonal variation की वजह से the expected price change is going to be lesser in Rabi. मैंने कहा 10% हो गया. और थर्ड में जायद में मॉडरेट है ना, प्लस माइनस 15%, right? So ideally speaking, on what commodity, which crop do you think farmer should go for more and more of commodity derivatives? किस पर जाए ज्यादातर? क्रॉप X पर या Y पर या Z पर? अगर आप फार्मर होते तो आप क्या करते? What is your objective at the end of the day? That in one agricultural season, right? Sorry, in a non-agricultural year, right? After producing 3 crops, your risk reduces down overall. Yes or no? You will try to secure your income level, and thereby your objective is to finally lower down the risk factor. रिस्क जितना हो उसे कम कर दे, है ना? इसी को हम कहते हैं lowering risk is called hedging. This is called hedging, right? So if I am a farmer, or let's say even if you are a farmer, right? I believe if I formulate too many commodity derivatives here, the chances of incurring losses, right, or even gains for that matter, right? Because the number is too high, it will simply get amplified. Positives के case में there is no problem. Obviously the gains get amplified. But in the case of losses, worst case scenario, my losses will also be amplified in that. Yes or no? And thereby I don't think this will be suitable at all. सीजनल वेरिएशन हुआ, क्रॉप बन गया है ना, ठीक ठाक मॉडरेट प्रोडक्शन हो गया, मैंने बेच दिया, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं. लेकिन मान लो ओवर प्रोडक्शन हो गया, बहुत ज़्यादा ओवर प्रोडक्शन हो गया, तो और मैंने फाइनेंशियल फ्यूचर बना दी, तो प्रॉब्लम ही प्रॉब्लम है. या कम प्रोडक्शन हो गया और मैं दे ही ना पाया, फिर प्रॉब्लम है, राइट? तो मैंने कहा ये नहीं ठीक लग रहा है. सेम इज द सिनेरियो विद दिस. इवन इफ आई फॉर्मुलेट फाइनेंशियल फ्यूचर्स हियर, the gains that may come out may not be ample to recover losses of these two. So there again, not an optimum choice. What is my optimum choice? My optimum choice is always going with the moderate level of any crop which has moderate level of price change, right? So farmer will try and formulate financial futures for this particular crop. Again, you can alter this, you can take this to be Zaid, you can take this to be Rabi and this to be Kharif also. You can alter anything. आप अपनी मर्जी से numbers imagine कर सकते हो. My idea is just take 3 crops, any 3 crops or 4 crops, whatever you want to, right? Wherever you find, wherever the farmer will find there is moderate levels of changes expected, there farmer will basically go for financial futures, so that even if there are losses in the other crops, he is able to recover that loss substantially. Okay. Now remember one thing, if I want to achieve this objective, can I allow options in this market? Problematic है ना, right? Because the other entity, farmer, he is basically gaining from hedging. ही तो है. The intermediary or wholesaler is participating in this entire venture because he can gain out of speculation, but my farmer is participating in all of this because it is allowing him to hedge. It is allowing him to lower down his risk, right? But if there are options, then he cannot do that, right? So options are a no-no, right? You will not find options in this market. So लिख दो ये बात भी, और ये लिखना example. This is a very good example. You can write this statement that it allows, this instrument allows one to gain from speculation. It allows one to gain from speculation. I'm talking about wholesalers and intermediaries here. And the other entity to hedge. And the other entity to hedge. Hedge means lowering down the risk. Lowering down the risk. Okay. Also, please mention, put a star there and write options do not exist in commodities market. Options do not exist in commodities market. So we did not mention regulators for the earlier instruments. So who is the regulator of financial futures? Go back. Financial futures का regulator. सेबी, ठीक है. ऑप्शंस का रेगुलेटर सेबी अगेन, ठीक है, लिख दो. सेबी इज द रेगुलेटर for this particular instrument, commodities derivatives. Who is the regulator now? अभी सेबी है, पहले कौन था? So earlier we used to have something in the form of forwards market commission, right? So we had forwards market commission. Then forwards market commission was merged with RBI. And now SEBI regulates this instrument. So SEBI regulates this instrument. Now remember, this commodities future is more like a formal market instrument. ये जो हमारा commodities derivatives, commodities futures है, this is a formal market instrument. This is a formal market instrument. Why? Because I have a regulator sitting here watching over this instrument. For any instrument, if there is a regulator, what do I call it? कहीं पर भी अगर regulator हो तो क्या बोलूँगा? कि formal market का instrument है, right? But if I do not have a regulator for an instrument, what do I say? Then it becomes my informal market instrument, right? So in commodities, right, we also have informal market instruments which are still traded in the market. They are called forwards. ठीक है? I hope ये सबने लिख लिया ये वाला. Next slide भी लिख लिया. So let me take you to informal market instrument. और ये commodities market में exist करता है. This is called forwards. This is called forwards. Forwards. Mention कर देना. Forwards are similar to commodity derivatives. These are similar to commodity derivatives, where underlying asset is majorly informal है ना. तो किस चीज़ की ट्रेडिंग हो रही होगी? जहाँ सबसे ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम है इंडियन इकोनॉमी में, किस चीज़ की प्रॉब्लम है? एग्रीकल्चरल कमोडिटीज, मेनली एग्रीकल्चरल कमोडिटीज, मेनली एग्रीकल्चरल कमोडिटीज. And there is no regulator over this instrument. Now you'll find this to be very interesting. आप कहोगे सर इंस्ट्रूमेंट है, ट्रेडिंग भी हो रही है और रेगुलेटर क्यों नहीं है? फिर प्रॉब्लम इज दैट मेजरली ट्रेड टेक्स प्लेस इन द फॉर्म ऑफ ओवर द काउंटर ट्रेडिंग. हिंदी में हम कहते हैं मुंह जबानी हो रहा है काम सारा का सारा, राइट? So for example, let's say I go to farmers, I've talked through with them, right, and I've written this down in my diary, or I've written this down in paper, or I've given him a slip that okay, I will buy this much amount of commodities on this date at this price, right? And similarly, I've written all of this down with me also, and I come to the markets and I sell this to urban traders, and I give them an address. I tell them, you reach on this mandi on this particular date, just find some transportation and you will have your commodities by 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, काम करता है ना? So now what do you do? Right? There is absolutely no way that you can regulate it. Yes or no? So in terms of agri commodities, we find there's a lot of informal market instruments which may persist, right? In fact, the idea was that by bringing in formal market instruments, the trading of forwards will come down, right? But how do you change? I mean, this is not 1 year or 2 years of trading that is taking place, or 1 year or 2 years of system. This is taking place since a lot of years, I believe. कम से कम 600 साल तो हो ही गया होगा, 600-700 साल, है ना, जब से ट्रेडिंग चल रहा है इंडिया में. This is happening before the time of Britishers. Yes or no? When commodities were entering the markets then also, right? And these traders, they simply used to go to rural areas and they would secure this in the form of contracts. They would come to urban markets and sell over these contracts to traders, retailers, right? Or even bigger wholesalers. So how do you change this scenario, right? So I would say that we haven't met with much luck with respect to, changing that scenario of trade, because forwards still they do persist in the market, and agricultural commodities में this is more like a nuisance that is there. सबसे बड़ा headache है ये. अब देखेंगे सेबी तो है ही involved, सेबी के साथ साथ आरबीआई भी involved है. कैसे involved है? So what SEBI does is SEBI basically gauges over, right, agri commodity derivatives. If SEBI finds there is too much of volatility, right, there is too much of volatility in agri derivatives, then this is also an indication that there might be too much of volatility with respect to forwards also, right? And thereby both SEBI and RBI will come into action. What will SEBI do on its part? SEBI goes for banning that commodities future, right? That this commodities future will not be traded for, let's say, 14 days, 21 days. तो मैंने लिखवाया inflation में, to control inflation today, right? But what will RBI do? RBI on its part, we read, has qualitative measures under which, right, RBI, for example, let's say this is happening for potato only. So RBI understand that any potato trader that comes in is able to engage into speculation, is able to go for hoarding only because has too much of liquidity, has access to too much of liquidity, and thereby gives the instruction to the banks that you go for increasing the margin requirements on loans. याद है variation of margin requirements? पढ़ाया था, qualitative measure. So banks in turn, they will increase their margin requirements, thereby giving lesser amounts to traders. Thereby volatility can come to this can come down to a certain level. समझ आया कैसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है ये? मार्केट्स में आप देखेंगे एग्रीकल्चर कमोडिटीज में दिस इज मोर लाइक अ न्यूसेंस, है ना. इनफैक्ट एक इंडिकेशन भी मिलता है. Traders also get this indication that if we execute and if we go for a lot of forwards, right, they will also have to execute them at the end of the day. When they execute, they will end up hoarding the commodity. If we place that commodity under ECA Act, then administration will start running after them. It will start going for raids in their godowns to unearth these hoarded goods. So thereby, they also stopped trading in forwards. कम खरीदते हैं forwards वो भी. So एक तरह से ये इंडिकेशन के तौर पे ही काम करता है. तो मैं कहूँगा कि ठीक है, we haven't had much luck with commodity derivatives, but still, at least as an indicator, it is helping us out to understand what is happening in the markets. Regulator को कुछ तो आइडिया लग रहा है कि क्या हो रहा है. ठीक है, हो रहा है. Next, let's come to the last one, which is my currency futures. I believe this is my third or fourth. Third है, ठीक है. Fourth instrument, currency futures या currency derivatives. Currency futures और currency derivatives. So contract है ये भी. This is a contract to buy or sell, let's say dollars, कितने, let's say $1,000 on this date at, let's say, rupees 80 per dollar. So this is a contract to buy some foreign currency in specified quantity on a specified date at a specified price. क्वांटिटी भी लिखी हुई है, प्राइस भी लिखा हुआ है, डेट भी लिखी हुई है, राइट? एंड दीज आर ट्रेडेड ऑन This instrument is traded on stock exchanges. This instrument is traded on stock exchange. Now tell me, which set of entities do you think will participate in buying and selling of currency derivatives? Sorry? Why commercial banks? Sorry? Foreign currency buyers or sellers होंगे ना, sitting or residing in India. Foreign currency buyers or sellers. And why are they buying foreign currency? They are buying foreign currency because they require foreign currency to purchase commodities from outside India. Sell कौन करने आएगा foreign currency? जो कमा रहा होगा, somebody who is earning in terms of foreign currency. So इन entities को क्या कहते हैं? These are my exporters and importers, I believe. Exporters and importers. And why are exporters and importers engaging into buying and selling of currency derivatives? They are engaging into buying and selling of currency derivatives to hedge against exchange rate volatility. For example, let's say I have an exporter, and this exporter feels that if he is able to sell out each and every dollar, right, for anything somewhere in the range of 79 to 80, then he can run his own production, then he is comfortable enough in terms of profits. So can he go for these kind of currency futures? Sell these many dollars at this price at let's say rupees 80 per dollar on this date. जब भी एक्सपेक्टेड हो उसे कि आ जाएंगे डॉलर्स मेरे पास, पेमेंट आ जाएगी डॉलर्स के टर्म में. सिमिलरली लेट्स से आई आल्सो हैव एन इंपोर्टर सिटिंग हियर. इन्फोसिस खरीदता है, टीसीएस खरीदता है ना, या सेलर होंगे, सॉरी ये तो सेलर्स होंगे, बायर्स होंगे हमारे, इंपोर्टर्स जो क्रूड खरीद रहे हैं, रिफाइनरी सेक्टर है ना. सो लेट्स से they have to purchase the next lot of crude oil, right? So they believe that if they purchase crude, for purchasing crude, if they buy out dollars at let's say 80 per price, that is good enough for them. They cannot go beyond 80. So he can go for buying, let's say these many dollars on this date at this price, and thereby they are able to hedge against ER volatility. Even if the prices of dollar is to rupee tomorrow goes haywire, right? Anything can happen. $1 is equal to 85 हो सकता है, $1 is equal to 75 भी हो सकता है. But both of them are safe, comfortable, right? And both of them can engage into buying and selling of currency futures, currency derivatives. So using this instrument, they are able to hedge against ER, exchange rate volatility that may occur in the markets. Now who is going to regulate this instrument? इसको कौन regulate करेगा? Foreign currency है, thereby I will have RBI, but this is being traded on stock exchanges, thereby I will also have SEBI. So this is jointly regulated by RBI and SEBI. This instrument is jointly regulated by RBI and SEBI. So I have majorly told you whatever derivative instruments are there. Next, let me take you to a derivative instrument only. But that derivative instrument is instrumental or is very much in play when it comes to foreign investors investing in Indian share markets or any foreign investors investing into share markets of other country, right? So UPSC has already asked a question over this. This is called participatory notes, also referred to as P notes. Participatory notes or P notes. So let's say on one end I have Indian share market. Now, do you recall who is the regulator of Indian share market? SEBI है. तो SEBI यहाँ बैठा है. And what is the practical role of SEBI? So practical role of SEBI is that any entity which is present on the market or in the market wants to enter will go for a compulsory registration with the entity, right? Which means every entity entering the market needs to be registered, right? So any entity, let's say foreign institutional investor, or I can even call this entity as foreign portfolio investor because he's making investment in terms of portfolio, right? Portfolio means this is a diversified form of investment. I have 100 rupees. For example, I told you that let me take you to race course and give you money to bet on a horse, right? But say instead you tell me that instead of betting on a single horse, you want to bet on multiple horses, utilizing that same amount of money. So that will be diversifying your portfolio, right? So आपने क्या किया? Diversify कर दिया. So portfolio based investment कर दिया. और institutional तो बता ही रहा है कि bulk purchasers है, bulk investors हैं, right? So they would invest into debt instruments, they would invest into equity instruments, even invest into let's say other set of instruments, options खरीदते हैं, derivatives खरीदते हैं, खरीद रहे हैं जो खरीद, ठीक है ना? So diversified portfolio build up कर रहे हैं. But in order to invest money, they will have to be registered with SEBI. So foreign portfolio investors or foreign institutional investors, these are registered with SEBI. Right? Now let's say you are somebody who is sitting outside India. Imagine karo, you are a foreigner, right? And you want to invest into Indian share market or let's say share markets of Canada or from Brazil or some other country, but you don't want, your identity to get disclosed. So you don't want to submit any documents related to your identity. So can you invest into markets globally? Yes, you can. That is also possible in 21st century, right? And how do you do that? You basically have these hedge fund companies sitting for you. Hedge fund companies, right? So hedge fund companies, these are basically your investment bankers. बहुत सारी हैं यार आज की डेट में. Melvin Capital है. अब बस you just type out hedge fund companies. ऐसे there is going to be an entire list of hedge fund companies that will pop out. So there are a lot of these hedge fund companies sitting in Europe, America, right? And if you are an investor, what you do is you simply give away your money to this hedge fund company. So आप यहाँ हो, right? You give away your money to this hedge fund company. Dollars दे दिए, pound दे दिए, euro दे रहा है, euro दे दिए, right? And now this hedge fund company, this investor, this banker, right? He is going to transfer your money to FPI, foreign portfolio investors and institutional investors, and thereby your investment will be made in the markets. But if these hedge fund companies are giving money to foreign portfolio investors, these foreign portfolio investors, they promise these hedge fund companies that we will return back your money with this much amount of returns by investing into this asset class on this date at this time period, है ना? So ये क्या करते हैं? सारी डिटेल्स एक जगह लिख देते हैं. So एक नोट बनाया. Let's say every $1 that we take, we will return back $2 to you, है ना? So 100% return दे रहा है, right? So there is return percentage specified. तो price तो आएगी obviously. Return percentage है. So this is nothing but my specified price. At what price this will be returned, right? Then they will also describe the asset class. You will also describe the asset class that generally we are going for, let's say 70-10-10, 70% into equity, 10% into debt, or 10% into options or this. So they'll describe the asset class, right? So they are also specifying the quantity here, right? And finally, they will also tell you on what date the money is to be returned back. So there is some specified date too. So if I have these three things in one place, specified quantity, date, and price, what do I call it? I call it as a derivative instrument in the market, right? और ये नोट को क्या बोलेंगे? This note is nothing but participatory note. ये note जो दिया है, this is my participatory note. Just remember one thing, these hedge funds could have invested directly into share markets. They could have invested directly also, but they don't want to do this directly because of the mandatory compliance of SEBI that you will have to get registered. So even hedge funds, they are not registered with the regulator. So they are not registered with SEBI. They are not registered with SEBI. Write this, ये बनाया? डेरिवेटिव इंस्ट्रूमेंट है. Hedge funds, बस नाम ही इनका hedge है ना? But these are the companies which take, you can say, higher amount of risk compared to even a normal investor. In fact, these foreign portfolio investors, they generally promise returns up to 40%, 50%. In fact, what they will do is, this money, this never sleeps. This money will just keep circulating throughout the globe, right? तो यूरोप में अलग फॉरेन इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर्स बैठे हैं, अमेरिका में अलग बैठे हैं. तो ये पैसा पूरे सर्कुलरली घूमता रहता है. कैसे घूमता है? पहले एक है ना, आम ने संभाल लिया, यूरोपियन आम ने संभाल लिया पैसा, राइट? So they would start investing into Europe and Asian markets, and thereby, and by the end of the day, they will hand over to their American counterparts. Person sitting in America, this will start investing into Canada and so on, US markets, and then South American markets, and then pass over the bit into the other. So yeah, this money just keeps circulating. In fact, this is the money which is responsible for creating volatility in the markets. That is why, because of this nature, we say this is responsible for, इसी को कहते हैं क्या? इसको कहते हैं fly by night money. Fly by night money. At times it is also referred to as hot money. Hot money. Hot क्यों? कोई पकड़ नहीं पा रहा है, आया गया आया गया. बेसिकली गेम इनके पास वॉल्यूम का है. बहुत क्रिटिसाइज किया जाता है हेज फंड्स को. सॉरी. In European markets and in US markets, there is always this battle going on. Hedge fund companies versus retail traders. So there was a very good documentary which has come out. It is called Eat the Rich Saga. GameStop. GameStop is basically one of their arcade game shops where you can purchase your video games, PC games, right? It was very popular back in the day, but over the period of time, as Microsoft and all these companies, they started selling their games on your desktop only, online only, right? So this company GameStop, it closed down. जैसे पहले आपने खेला होगा ग्रैंड थेफ्ट ऑटो आता था, तो सारे गेम्स में यहाँ पे ना वैसे मिलते थे. यू कैन परचेज इट फॉर लेट्स से $200 or let's say $80, right? Over the period of time, let's say you have played it for a year, so you take this, you return it back to the store. They'll buy it from you. They will buy it at, let's say, $30 from you, $35, $40 from you, and they will again sell it for $42, $45. ये था उनका model. But over the period of time, the company was not doing very well, right? Obviously, so they started closing down on the stores. And generally what these hedge funds do is they go for a practice called as shorting the shares. कंपनी है, इसके शेयर ऐसे गिर रहा है, मुझे पता है डूब जाएगा, तो ये क्या करते हैं, ये एक टेक्निक यूज करते हैं, इसको बोलते हैं शॉर्टिंग. शॉर्टिंग मीन्स दैट you basically take a share, take the equity on loan from somebody, right? So I've, let's say, borrowed, let's say you are holding shares of a company and I've borrowed shares from you, right? That give me 10 shares today, and the price today is $10, right? So I have borrowed it from you. You are concerned about 10 shares because I've only borrowed 10 shares from you. So I need to return back 10 shares to you. Now, my bet here in this entire game is that the share price is going to go down. So if share price is going to go down, let's say 3 months later, 4 months later, when the share price goes to $8, $5, $4, I can basically buy this. And what do I make? I basically make the difference amount. So let's say I purchase it for $7 and I return you the 10 shares. So what is my gain? My gain is $3 per share. इसको बोलते हैं शॉर्टिंग. बेट्स प्लेस करते हैं कि गिरेगा और सस्ते में खरीद के वापस रिटर्न कर देंगे. अब ये उल्टा कैसे बढ़ गया? रिटेल ट्रेडर्स ने गेम कर दी इनकी. सो देयर इज दिस प्लेटफॉर्म कॉल्ड एज रेडिट. Reddit where you can go, you can build up your profile, and you can interact with other people, and you can choose your own groups to interact with, right? So for example, if you are interested in photography, so you can go there. So it's almost like forums that is building up, na? Public forums हैं, you can always go and join it, right? So retail trading community भी है, एक page भी है वहाँ पे ना, trading के respect में. Wall Street कुछ करके ऐसे है, Wall Street bets के नाम से. So a lot of retail traders, they started buying shares of GameStop, right? Obviously there is sentimental value attached to it, na? As a kid you have always gone into those stores, so they start buying it. And mind you, the share has been shorted to the extent of 140%. 140%. 140% means, see, I can always loan the share, na? Loan to ज़्यादा जा सकता है, 100% ज़्यादा जा सकता है, because a share can be given on a loan multiple times. 140% शॉर्ट कर चुके हैं वो. इतना तगड़ा बेट प्लेस किया है कि गिरेगा तो है ही, क्या दिक्कत है? तो प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है. Anyone who is holding the share today will lose out eventually. So it is their gain compared to versus the others. देखो कहानी. So retail traders, they started buying it. In 2020, they started buying it. And they started putting it publicly on this platform called Reddit. Now other people also got interested. Gradually other people got interested. So there is this one entrepreneur, right? I think he has this online company. वहाँ तो बहुत कुछ है ना. So this company basically provides you products related to pets, right? So he bought 9% stake in the company. 9% shares खरीदे gradually by August 2020, and he basically posted this on Twitter. Obviously this made news. So other retail traders, they also started buying it. Then as they move forward, by January, I believe Elon Musk also tweeted about it. So he wrote game stonk, and then the market exploded. Elon Musk तो भैया generation youth के लिए क्या है? He's a very strong figure these days, right? The moment he mentioned it, the share price jumped like this. यहाँ बैठा था बेचारा अच्छा खासा 30-40 बैठा होगा आई बिलीव, एंड इट जंप डायरेक्टली टू 80, 90, 100 ऐसे जंप कर गया पूरा ऊपर। जैसे जंप किया क्या हो रहा है, एनीवन हु इज टेकन अ शॉर्ट पोजीशन ऑन इट इज नाउ फियरफुल। हाथ पैर कांपते भाई आदमी के। प्रॉब्लम क्या है ना, शॉर्ट अगर काम कर जाए यू मेक अ लॉट ऑफ मनी, बट इफ इट डजंट वर्क यू आर बेसिकली आई मीन losing out, you're losing shit loads of money then. Why? Because you will have to buy at a higher rate. To return him back a share of $10, I will have to buy the share at $100 now. And thereby your losses, I mean, you understand that lower limit less hai, but upper limit can be anything. So as it keeps increasing higher, 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 you will have to keep pushing money and keep buying those shares in order to return them back. Okay, come. Game over. अच्छा चलता है हेज फंड्स और उनके बीच में ना, हमारे कंट्री में तो भी क्या है, देयर आर नॉट अ लॉट ऑफ सच सेटअप्स दैट हैव कम अप। ओके, सो हेज फंड्स लिखवाई देता हूं, लेट मी गिव दिस टू यू इन राइटिंग। फर्स्ट लेट्स राइट डाउन अबाउट पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट्स। पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट्स आर फाइनेंशियल डेरिवेटिव इंस्ट्रूमेंट, financial derivative instrument used by investors like hedge funds to invest indirectly in Indian share market as these are not registered with SEBI. As these are not registered with SEBI. Next line में you can mention FIIs or FPIs are registered with SEBI. Next line में FIIs and FPIs are registered with SEBI. And these FIIs give an acknowledgement to hedge funds. Give an acknowledgement to hedge funds. Give an acknowledgement to hedge funds, which is P notes, which is P notes or participatory notes. Next, let me give you what are hedge funds. Write down hedge funds are risk-taking investment companies. Hedge funds are risk-taking investment companies which make huge profits. Which make huge profits. But are not registered with SEBI. But are not registered with SEBI. Which make huge profits but are not registered with SEBI. Change the line and then write. Hedge funds are criticized a lot of times. Hedge funds are criticized a lot of times as they engage in money laundering, financing illegal activities, hawala, even at times terror financing. We have found links of hedge funds with terrorists. So we have a lot of times this has been disclosed that it was these hedge funds which were responsible for arranging finances, right, for the terrorists to carry out the attacks. So even this has been established a lot of times. So globally इनको condemn ही करते हैं hedge funds को, right? तो क्या करें, अभी exist करता है. So in the name of privacy in those countries, this is still existing, and these practices are being carried forward. I don't think in India this can be allowed. This will not come up in India because India may SEBI requires, so for example, if you build up an asset management company, there is a direct regulation of SEBI that no matter which investor comes to you, go for KYC, go for know your customer compliance, right? So take all their details, take their Aadhaar card, PAN card, everything. Ask them for their bank account. And everything is linked, thereby government knows. ठीक है, समझ में आया? पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट्स रेगुलेट कौन करता है? SEBI. Now, as I've told you, this is my fly-by-night money or hot money. A lot of times this is responsible for creating volatility in the markets, and that is why this remains in news, right? So at times SEBI may simply look into how much amount of P notes have been issued by this particular entity. So हमारे पास data आता है, right? By looking at the data, by looking at the trends, we can understand that a lot of money has been taken by FIIs and they are pumping this money into markets. So they are, let's say, systematically using algorithms and everything, they are strategically investing into the market. For example, मान लीजिए आपको मैं दिख रहा है markets में, let's say Tata Motors shares only are going up, minute by minute they are going up, right? So domestic investor also falls into this trap. As an investor, you feel that you can also invest and you can gain out. 2 घंटे तो रखना है पैसा, है ना? तो आपने लगा दिया, वेट कर रहे हो that this will keep increasing, right? At times even company doesn't know that why is the share price increasing. We have not done anything. कल भी यही बना रहे थे गाड़ी, आज भी यही बना रहे हैं गाड़ी, कुछ नया तो किया नहीं, कोई मैनेजमेंट चेंज नहीं, कुछ नहीं है, right? प्राइस इंक्रीज कर रहे हैं मार्केट में. Suddenly he is going to dump all that stock in the market. उठाएगा and he is going to dump all that stock, बेच दिया. डंप किया तो क्या होगा? फ्री फॉल होगा स्टॉक प्राइस में. Now it will take you almost 6 years, 10 years to recover that money. मार्केट में बैठे रहोगे तो रिकवर करने में, कंपनी का प्राइस वापस वहां तक जाने में इतना टाइम लग जाएगा, हो सकता है जाए ही ना. That is also possibility, right? So if this is the situation, then what does SEBI do? SEBI will simply put a ban on participatory notes. SEBI will simply put a ban on participatory notes. SEBI कहेगा that for the next 21 days, no participatory notes can be issued by foreign institutional investors, which means they cannot take in money and they cannot make the investments. ठीक है, तो ये अगर फीचर कर रहे हो तो ऐसे ही कुछ फीचर कर रहा होगा. नेक्स्ट आते हैं, नेक्स्ट कम टू म्यूचुअल फंड्स. म्यूचुअल फंड्स, let's first understand what are mutual funds, okay? Then we'll write this. No, Amar, please. Remittances are a different thing. I will talk of remittances when I talk of balance of payment account, which is my next unit only. So don't worry. Remittances और ये एक चीज़ नहीं है बेटा. ये बाहर से इन्वेस्टर से लिया गया पैसा है अमर, ठीक है? ऐसा इन्वेस्टर जो अपनी आइडेंटिटी डिस्क्लोज नहीं करना चाहता है, तो फॉरेन पोर्टफोलियो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं जो इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकर्स हैं एक तरह से, राइट? दे आर जस्ट टेकिंग इन मनी फ्रॉम हेज फंड कंपनीज एंड दिस इज बीइंग इन्वेस्टेड. अब उसको एक्नॉलेजमेंट देने के लिए दैट यस आई हैव टेकन मनी फ्रॉम यू एंड यू हैव पार्टिसिपेटेड इन दिस एंटायर great circus of investment, right, where your money will be returned at this proportion, this acknowledgement is being given back. ठीक है, तो भैया ऐसे मत कंपेयर करो. Okay, let's come back to mutual funds. What are mutual funds? See, if you understand P notes, you will understand this very easily, because the idea behind creation of mutual funds is derived from the idea of P notes only. P notes में हम acknowledgement दे रहे हैं, यहाँ पर भी हम आपको acknowledgement देते हैं, right? So I will have one entity in the middle sitting here in the form of asset management company. Asset management company. Remember I talked about Project Sashakt. I talked about asset management company there also. So this asset management company will take in money from investors. Will take in money from investors. This will be channelized towards some mutual fund, right? Mutual fund बनाएं कैसे? How do we create a mutual fund? So mutual fund is nothing but literally hand picking assets. So I hand pick, right? As an AMC, my job is to hand pick the assets, right? Based on the requirements of my investors. In fact, in terms of hand picking, I can do anything, na? For example, let's say you go to a fruit chart stall, na? What do? You basically tell your own requirements that I want more of papaya, I want more of watermelon, I want more of mango, less of this, more of this. Right? Similarly, I can also create something for you. For example, let's say you tell me that, sir, we are young and thereby our horizon period, the time period of investment is relatively higher compared to other people, and thereby we can stay in the market for 15 years. Whatever we invest, we will require that money back somewhere around 15 years. And we are expecting gains of, let's say, close to 20%, 25%. Based on this assessment, I can say, okay, I can go for almost 80-20% of ratio, where 80% of your funds can be channelized, or 90% of your funds initially can be channelized towards equities, and the remaining can be channelized towards debt. Or I may invest 100% into equity earlier for the first 10 to 12 years, and thereby I can pick out all this money based on the dynamic condition of the market. If the markets are too volatile, I can pick out your money and invest it into debt funds. Debt instruments पे लगा दूँ, right? So मैं यहाँ पे hand pick कर सकता हूँ. So I have this entire Indian share market to hand pick from, where I have a lot of debt-based instruments like government securities. Then I have corporate bonds, I have commercial papers, I have certificates of deposits, promissory notes, etc., etc. Right? Then I also have equity, and in equity I have sectors, and in different sectors I have different set of companies present here. Right? मेरे ऊपर हाथ में है कि मैं क्या चाह रहा हूँ, क्या aim कर रहा हूँ. Right? And then I also have options and derivatives and financial futures, what all and what not. So based on this, I can create any set of mutual fund, right? But once I have finalized, what will happen? So let's say while creating a mutual fund, I have finalized, let's say I have these 10 companies, A, B, C, ऐसे करके companies लिख दिया. मैंने quantity लिख दिया, quantity of shares and price of the share today. Based on this, I can calculate the value, right? After writing all my shares, I can calculate the total value. This becomes total value of all the assets held by mutual fund. देख सकता हूँ ना, quantity into price ही तो करना है, क्या करना है, कुछ नहीं, ठीक. This is the total value of all assets held by mutual fund. Once I have this total value, right, I can look at your affordability, right? So मुझे लगा कि आपकी affordability के लिए let's keep the price to lower end. So let's keep the price to be ₹10. जिसकी जेब में जितना पैसा है ना. So मैंने लिखा total value, divide this with number of units issued. तो यहाँ रख दिया. At what price do I want to sell this today, right? This is my net asset value, NAV, net asset value. Let's say initially, generally mutual funds, asset management companies will keep the prices to be very low, right? Generally they begin from 10 only. So मैंने इसको 10 रख दिया, right? यहाँ से इसको वहाँ ले जाओ, यहाँ से यहाँ ले आओ, right? This will give you number of units issued. Once you have done that, number of units issued remains fixed throughout. This will not change. Number of units issued will not change. This remains fixed. But what changes is, based on the prices, this value will keep changing, and thereby total assets held by mutual fund, this will keep altering. यही तो हम कर रहे हैं ना हैंड पिक करने में. अगर आप डायनामिक फंड के लिए ऑल्टर करो, ऑप्ट कर लो, it is the job of this asset management company to deploy people, to deploy investment bankers, that based on the dynamic condition, for example, if the automobile sector is not performing well, so his job is to pick the investment from here, invest it into the sector where things are going smooth, things are running smooth. ये सुनो, जब बिजनेस प्रॉस्पेक्ट दिखे, ठीक, सो ऐसे हम नेट एसेट वैल्यू निकाल सकते हैं. सो नेट एसेट वैल्यू कैसे, क्या फाइनल फॉर्मूला क्या है? लेट मी राइट दैट. NAV is equal to total assets held by the mutual fund minus expenses on mutual fund by AMC, right? कुछ expenses भी तो होंगे ना, and then you divide this number with number of units issued. Number of units issued, right? So let's say over a period of time, what will change? This part will change. Let's say 3 years later, total value of all assets, right? Value of total assets, the value of total assets held by the mutual fund. So value increases, and thereby this NAV will also increase, right? So mutual funds, they are traded on the basis of NAV. In fact, on the basis of NAV only, we calculate the returns also. So for example, let's say you have purchased them 3 years earlier. जब आया था तभी purchase कर लिया था 10 rupees पे. Today the net asset value has gone to 35, right? So what do? You take 35 minus price, net asset value at which you had purchased it, and you multiply this with number of units purchased. Number of units purchased. जितनी यूनिट्स परचेज करी उससे मल्टीप्लाई कर दो. दिस कम्स आउट एज योर टोटल रिटर्न्स फ्रॉम दिस म्यूचुअल फंड. सिंपल, ठीक है. अभी ये नहीं लिखना है ना. स्टार्ट विद योर दिस पर्टिकुलर डायग्राम सो दैट यू रिमेंबर दिस. It's almost like saying that because, for example, everybody wants their money to grow, right? अब growth companies, जिन companies में growth है, their stock price may be very much higher. जैसे for example, let's take the case of MRF. मैं example ले रहा हूँ बस. अब share of MRF is let's say above 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 है. आपने कहा सर इतना तो पैसा ही नहीं है मेरे पास. I don't have this much money. I have only 10,000 rupees extra or 5,000 rupees extra in a month. What do? I will never be able to grow. My money will not grow, right? So if you can't eat this big of a cake, can't you buy a pastry? You can. हमने क्या किया? हमने उसी asset को लिया. Not one person can buy it, but let's say combining all of you, you guys now can buy it, right? So that AMC has created that portfolio, right? They've bought all these assets. In fact, they are just tracking the price of these assets. Based on that, they will give you the units. Write down. Mutual funds are funds operated by AMC, Asset Management Company. Funds operated by Asset Management Company, which raises money from the public, which raises money from the public and invests it into and invests it into a group of assets, like shares and bonds. Like shares and bonds. Then write down mutual funds are traded. Traded means bought and purchased at NAV. At NAV, net asset value. Now you can write this formula. Write down NAV of a mutual fund. NAV of mutual fund is value of all assets held by the mutual fund minus the expenses on managing the mutual fund divided by number of units issued Okay. You can write this that the return from mutual funds is also calculated on the basis of NAV. NAV, net asset value. Net asset value of a mutual fund. Net asset value of a mutual fund. You can write this formula. NAV2 minus NAV1 into number of units purchased. Okay. पहला वाला NAV वो है जिस पर हम यूनिट्स बेच रहे हैं, सेकंड वाला NAV वो है जिस पर हमने खरीदे थे यूनिट्स. तो एक का निकाल लो, सबका निकल जाएगा. ठीक है. NAV is your basically price of 1 unit of the mutual fund. Next, let's come to classification of mutual funds. Classification of mutual funds. Classification of mutual funds. So the very first category that we have is called index funds. Second category that we have here is debt funds or also referred to as gilt funds. इसी को हम कई बार GILT भी कहते हैं, gilt funds. Third is my balanced funds. Balanced funds. If you simply ask me what is the parameter for classification, the parameter is simply the asset in which the fund is investing. Right? So if the fund is investing only in equity, only in shares, then it is called index fund. If it is investing only in debt instruments, then it is called gilt funds. And if it is investing in both of them, then it is called balanced fund. Mutual funds investing only in shares, mutual funds investing only in debt instruments, and mutual funds investing in both of them. नेक्स्ट आते हैं नेक्स्ट क्लासिफिकेशन पे. फर्स्ट सेकंड थर्ड तो ये हो गया. Now the fourth and fifth classification is your open-ended mutual fund, and we have something called as closed-ended mutual fund. Now this classification is based on at what point in time can an investor enter the mutual fund and exit the mutual fund. उसके बेसिस पे है क्लासिफिकेशन. ओपन एंडेड म्यूचुअल फंड्स एंड क्लोज्ड एंडेड म्यूचुअल फंड्स. ओपन से शुरू करते हैं. राइट डाउन. funds in which the entry and exit of investor funds in which both entry and exit of investor is open are called open-ended funds. इसका मतलब ये है कि इन्वेस्टर कभी भी आ सकता है, इन्वेस्टमेंट कर सकता है, कभी भी जा सकता है. राइट. फुल स्टॉप. These funds can grow dynamically. These funds can grow dynamically as anyone can invest any amount of money anytime. सेकंड क्या है? क्लोज्ड एंडेड म्यूचुअल फंड. क्लोज में नहीं होगा. राइट. सो इन क्लोज्ड एंडेड म्यूचुअल फंड, in closed-ended mutual fund, investment can only be made during limited period. Called new fund offer. And after it both entry and exit of the investor is closed. However, the units of closed-ended mutual funds can be traded. However, the units of closed-ended mutual funds can be traded in secondary markets. can be traded in secondary markets. So यहाँ पर क्या होगा? Time and again you will hear about this. In fact, both in the case of open and closed, we have something called as new fund offer. जब भी ये AMCs बनाते हैं ना, whenever they create new funds, before that they will bring out NFO. They'll say from 1st to 15 we are bringing an NFO, new fund offer for you guys. So any investor who wants to invest with us can participate in this. And they'll tell you, they'll define in what set of asset class they are going to invest your money. They will tell you the risk factor also, everything they'll tell you. Based on that, you can make your decision whether you want to invest on a monthly basis or you want to make lump sum investments, whatever is the case, right? So in both these cases, the difference is that you can invest any point in time here. You can exit any point in time here. Here, the time period is fixed. So in NFO time period only, you can make the investment. Then the fund is locked, which means as an investor, you cannot ask your money back from AMC. But again, what is the point of investing money if I can't use it when I need it the most? Thereby, what is the solution to that problem? The solution is that the units of closed-ended mutual funds can always be traded in secondary markets. So you can always sell the units and you can get your money back, right? But A इसका time horizon रहता है. Let's say I am an AMC. I am creating both the funds. I am creating open-ended, closed-ended mutual funds based on same asset class, same asset size. So quantity, price, everything remains same, right? So do you think NAV of both the funds shall remain same? ओपन भी बना रहे हैं, क्लोज भी बना रहे हैं, हम एक AMC है, दोनों का asset class same है, quantity, price सब कुछ same है, right? So NAV क्या same मिलेगा? NAV of closed-ended mutual fund and open-ended mutual fund. किसका हायर होगा, किसका लोअर होगा? क्लोज्ड का हायर होगा. आप क्या कहते हो? क्यों? वाई? हाँ, ठीक है. तो यहाँ भी तो ग्रोथ पे डिपेंडेंट है. Asset class पे तो डिपेंडेंट है. It is simply tracking the prices of the asset class. Simple. There is also something more in both of them, ना? आप वहाँ तक क्यों जा रहे हो? समझ रहे हो? If I am in AMC, right, where will my expense on managing the fund higher? My expense on managing the fund will be higher here in open-ended mutual fund. Why? Let's say all 4 people of you have invested into the mutual fund. Both of them you are investing, right? Now at any given point in time, you can exit from open-ended mutual fund. So as an AMC, I need to keep some amount of money that you are investing separately in order to pay you back. But in this case, do I need to keep the money separately? No. So 100% of the money gets invested, and thereby this is true growth, pure growth. इसमें possible है क्या वो? Possible नहीं है. Only a certain part can be invested out, and thereby limited growth options है. यहाँ पर natural, true, 100% money can be invested. लिख दो ये चीज. Put a star and write NAV of closed-ended mutual funds. NAV of closed-ended mutual funds tends to be higher than an open-ended mutual fund. NAV of closed-ended mutual funds tends to be higher than an open-ended mutual fund. Than an open-ended mutual fund of similar size. Because in open-ended funds, because in open-ended funds, entire amount is not invested. Because in open-ended mutual funds, entire amount is not invested. Because investor can walk out with his funds. Because investor can walk out with his funds at any time. So to pay him back, so to pay him or her back, some funds are kept separate. Some funds are kept separate. Whereas in closed-ended funds, the entire amount can be invested. The entire amount can be invested. Next, I take you to exchange trade funds. Exchange trade funds. These are popularly called ETFs. ETFs. ये नया instrument है. In fact, in financial markets, relatively, you will find this is one of the youngest sets of instruments that has come in. बहुत नया है market में. ETFs, exchange trade funds. In fact, the very idea of exchange trade funds is based on the success of mutual funds in the market. Remember, do you recall that? I created debentures using two instruments. I picked up debt because I liked that component. Dividend से क्या लिया था? Quarterly, half-yearly, annual payment at least once in a year, right? I combined them and I said, okay, this is my new instrument, right? And I like mutual funds in that respect also. In open-ended mutual fund, I can enter in the investment, exit from the investment at any given point in time. Plus, from closed-ended mutual funds, because they can be traded in secondary markets, I like that aspect. So we decided to combine these two, right? Mutual funds के basis पे हमने combine किया. हमने कहा, what if, like mutual funds are tracking the value of assets, what if, right, I start tracking the value of any asset for that matter, let's say gold. Based on tracking the value of gold, I create gold ETF. Gold ETF, where I can define that 1 unit of gold ETF is equal to, let's say, 10 grams or 5 grams, whatever you want to, या 1 gram भी ले लो, 1 gram of gold, या 10 grams of gold, anything that you want is good enough. है कि नहीं? 1 gram, 10 gram, तो उसके बेसिस पे हम बना सकते हैं, right? The moment it starts tracking the value, my gold ETF becomes an instrument. So instead of purchasing physical gold, we can always go and purchase gold ETFs. कि प्राइस को ट्रैक कर रहा है, तो जैसे प्राइसेस चेंज हो रहा है, similarly gold ETFs are also changing, right? And I can purchase any number of units that I want to. Lower denomination मिलता है, जरूरी नहीं है 10 ग्राम ही हो, 1 ग्राम में भी मिलता है. AMCs ही बनाते हैं, इसे क्रिएट करते हैं, where they start tracking the value of any asset, right? अब ये बन गया ना, यूनिट्स बन गया, yes or no? यूनिट सेल ऑफ कर दिया, so this becomes literally like a substitute to direct investment in that physical asset. जैसे ये बन गया, substitute to direct investment in physical gold. So you buy it today and there is no hassle with it. For example, in physical gold you will take a locker in the bank, और ज़्यादा खरीद लिया तो क्या करोगे? गार्ड रखोगे भैया, बिठाओगे, लॉकर खरीदोगे, yes or no? हेडेक है, you can't go anywhere, right? इसमें कुछ है? No, the units are under your name. They are registered in your demat account. They are showing here. So you can always trade in them. You can buy today, you can sell them off. No hassle at all, right? Physical gold may, if you go out to sell it, physical gold, what will the person say? Sir, I need to check for purity. अब आप यहाँ बैठे हो, वो अंदर लेके गए, आपका दिल धड़क धड़क कर रहा है कि भैया कहीं रखना ले थोड़ा सा, है कि नहीं? तो कोई हैसल ही नहीं है. You buy it, you sell it, simple, right? So this is more like a substitute to investment in that asset, right? And this gold ETFs, they were promulgated, they were initiated by the government also, and they were started in the year 2014. In fact, you will find whenever the Indian economy faces a situation of higher current account deficit, I'm just utilizing this term today. In my next class, I will introduce you balance of payment account. So whenever India faces a situation of higher current account deficit, which means our imports are increasing, right? Government of India will try and push forward substitutes for investment in physical gold. कि लोग फिजिकल गोल्ड ना खरीदें, सब्स्टिट्यूट्स खरीद लें, जैसे गोल्ड ETF खरीद लें. ठीक? क्यों? Because gold is a non-critical import in our entire import basket. We can still live without gold, but we will not be able to live without crude for that matter. Or let's say machinery spares or machineries for that matter, or chemicals or APIs in pharmaceutical sector. And thereby whatever forex reserve that we have, should we spend more on critical imports for the economy, right? So investors के लिए हमेशा गवर्नमेंट ऐसे गोल्ड इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स बनाती रहेगी, डेजिग्नेट करती रहेगी, so that any investor who is buying gold from the purposes of investment only and not for the purpose of consumption, they can invest into this. समझ आएगी बात? ये सुनो, लिख लो इसे. ETF, write down ETFs track the value. ETFs track the value of some underlying asset. ETFs track the value of some underlying asset and are like substitute for direct investment in that asset. Write this as an example. Example gold ETF. Example gold ETF, which tracks gold prices and their value fluctuates. And their value fluctuates with gold prices. Full stop. It is substitute. It is a substitute for direct investment in gold. For direct investment in gold, and is usually encouraged when India faces higher current account deficit. Higher current account deficit. Due to higher imports. So stop. These ETFs can be traded in share markets and despite being mutual funds, are similar to shares, you can write this 1 unit of gold ETF is equal to 1 gram or 10 grams of gold. तो आपको देखना पड़ेगा कौन सा गोल्ड ETF है, किस AMC का है ना, देख के पता लग जाता है। 53,000 चल रहा है तो इसका मतलब 10 ग्राम्स है, 5,300 दिया है तो इसका मतलब 1 ग्राम है। इतना तो स्मार्ट हो तुम, समझ जाओगे ना। 1 unit of gold ETF is equal to 1 grams or 10 grams of gold, introduced in the year 2014. Now, if I carefully look at this, and if I look at all the features of this, I would say that ETF is nothing but a mix of the concept of closed-ended mutual funds and open-ended mutual funds. Close से क्या उठा लिया है? That units can be traded in markets, secondary markets मतलब stock exchange पे trade हो रहा है। और open से क्या उठा लिया हमने? That you can buy ETFs, gold ETFs at any given point in time, you can sell them at any given point in time, right? So लिख दो ETF is a mixed concept of closed and open-ended mutual funds. That is entry and exit at any given point in time. That is entry and exit at any given point in time. Comma, units can be traded in share market, which is the feature of closed-ended mutual funds. Now, second example usually of this is your CPSE ETF. सरकार ने पहले गोल्ड ETF लॉन्च किया, highly successful. Government realized maybe I can use this particular tool as a tool for disinvestment of PSUs, especially PSUs which are not doing so well, right? So government took up 10 government companies, 10 CPSEs, and decided to write the quantity and price, and thereby combine it in a weightage proportion, and thereby the prices would be tracked by ETF, right? So by selling you units of ETF, government is literally giving you shares of the company, right? But the idea is that this, because ETF is going to be affordable, so it's very much possible that you may not buy the complete share, you may buying it in terms of fractions, right? So this was a very lucrative proposition. By instead of buying share of ONGC only, let's say I have 1,000 rupees and I'm only buying shares of ONGC, utilizing 1,000 rupees, if I can buy shares of 10 different government companies, that is much better. Diversified portfolio mil raha hai, right? So government wanted to leverage this particular tool, but I would say this remained highly unsuccessful because majority of these companies were not doing so well. So investors, they shied away, they did not buy this instrument. Okay, so लिख सकते हो CPSE ETF which was brought in 2014 again. CPSE ETF which was brought in 2014 again. And 1 unit of CPSE ETF is equal to 1 unit of CPSE ETF is equal to weighted average of share value of 10 PSUs या PSEs. अब आप कहोगे सर ये तो म्यूचुअल फंड की तरह लग रहा है, क्योंकि 10 ले लिया. So कुछ difference है? Is there any difference between ETF and mutual funds? Yes, there is. The difference is that the proportion of underlying assets will not change in ETF. It will remain fixed. लीजिए 100 shares of X company दे रहा है government. It will remain as 100 shares. The underlying asset does not change. But in the case of mutual funds, the underlying asset can change. It is based on AMC, Asset Management Company. बताया तो मैंने. आपके पास अगर आप देखेंगे मार्केट में, कहते हैं ना यार वो आजकल देयर इज अ न्यू टर्म दैट इज गोइंग ऑन, हाइब्रिड म्यूचुअल फंड्स, या वो कह रहे हैं ना डायनामिक म्यूचुअल फंड्स. देखा वो एडवर्टीजमेंट, डायनामिक म्यूचुअल फंड्स बेच रहे हैं. डायनामिक मतलब क्या है? सीजन अच्छा है, मौसम अच्छा है, किस में इन्वेस्ट करा जाए? इक्विटी में. मौसम खराब हुआ, किस में इन्वेस्ट कर दो? बट ये कौन करता है? ये बैलेंस ऑफ कौन करता रहता है बैठ के? AMCs, investment bankers sitting in AMCs, they can make this decision. Yes or no? So the underlying asset proportion can vary in mutual funds, but the underlying asset proportion will not vary out in the case of ETFs. It will remain fixed. Whatever it was on day one, it will remain fixed throughout. This was the reason why people did not participate much in CPSE ETF. Government की hurt हुई, government ने कहा अरे ऐसे कैसे? How can this happen? Right? Then government basically launched something in the form of Bharat 22 ETF. Bharat 22 ETF. इसके बाद तीसरा एग्जाम्पल है ETF का ही. हाँ ये भी, इसको ही पेपर गोल्ड बोलते हैं. लेकिन पेपर गोल्ड बहुत सारी चीज़ें, जैसे गिल्ड फंड्स को पेपर गोल्ड, SDRs को पेपर गोल्ड. भारत 22 ETF. Bharat 22 ETF. Government said Bharat 22 ETF will comprise of stocks of 22. 22 stands for 22 companies. This ETF will comprise of stocks of 22 companies. क्या क्या होगा? बोला this will comprise of central public sector enterprises. Okay, great. This will comprise of public sector banks. Okay. And this will even comprise of strategic holding of SUTI. So CPSEs आ गए, public sector banks आ गए, and strategic holding of SUTI, SWTI. What is SUTI? SUTI is your specified undertaking of Unit Trust of India. Specified undertaking of Unit Trust of India. Now, who is going to be the AMC for this particular index? Government said, I don't know. I don't know how to become an AMC, na? Government का थोड़ी है forte है. So, whom did government bring? Government said this will be done by ICICI Prudential AMC. ICICI Prudential AMC will be the ETF manager. ICICI Prudential, PRUDENTIAL Prudential AMC will be the ETF manager, and Asia Index Private Limited will be index provider. Asia Index Private Limited will be the index provider. And what is the significance? The significance is that this is a diversified portfolio. भाई स्टॉक है ना, आप देखो खुद, एक ही उसके थोड़ी हैं ये. These 22 stocks are of different set of, public sector enterprises, public sector utility companies, right? So government said that this will comprise of 6 major sectors. अगर आप इसे divide करना चाहें तो इसमें जो ये 22 स्टॉक हैं, these 22 stocks are of 6 sectors. क्या हैं ये 6 sectors? 6 sectors क्या क्या है लिखो. First is basic material. Second is energy. Third is finance. Basic material, energy, finance, FMCG. FMCG is फास्ट मूविंग कंज्यूमर गुड्स, वेरी गुड. कंपनी का नाम बताओ, एनी कंपनी विच बिलोंग्स टू एफएमसीजी कैटेगरी. अब दिन भर ही तो इंटरेक्ट करते हो एफएमसीजी कंपनी से, आईटीसी, एचयूएल, पतंजलि, सब क्या है ये? All of these are manufacturing fast moving consumer goods. FMCG हो गया, then industries. Industries. 5 तो ये हो गए, and then 6th is going to be utilities, public sector utilities. Then government said that this will be used as a tool for disinvestment. टारगेट जो 2018 के लिए रखा, फाइनेंशियल ईयर 2018 में टारगेट रखा, that the target will be 75,000 करोड़. बहुत बड़े प्लान्स थे भारत 22 ETF के साथ. अचीव हुए? नहीं हुए. क्यों नहीं हुए भाई? इन्वेस्टर बहुत स्मार्ट है मार्केट में. Investors, they soon realized that majority what the government is selling out is again those companies which are not performing well. बाकी सब तो दिखाने का है, तो है ना कि हमने दिखाया कुछ, बेचा कुछ. आपको जैसे ही पता लगा कि कुछ और बेचना चाह रहे हैं, why would you buy it? So investors are very smart. They understood that the proportion of finance-based companies or energy-based companies or basic materials-based companies equity is very less. Their weightage has been very less. Weightage of utility companies is very high. Utility companies are not performing well of the government. Look at BSNL, MTNL, Air India. उसमें तो Air India भी था, right? So investors, they again shied away. ठीक. Sure. With this, I come to the end of ETFs also. Next, let me take you to gold-based instruments. ठीक है, दो ही बचे हैं, खत्म करते हैं फिर चलेंगे. Gold-based instruments. Because I've talked of gold ETF now, so you should know gold-based instruments that have been in the market. So first, I want to talk of gold bonds. आपने सुना होगा SGB sovereign gold bonds. सुना है? SGB sovereign gold bonds. थोड़ा बहुत सुना होगा. Sovereign gold bonds, right? Sovereign gold bonds, you can purchase them from your banks, post offices, right? So these sovereign gold bonds, they are issued by Government of India. They are issued by, in fact, newspapers में भी आता है इसका notification. Issued by government. They are issued by the government. And you can basically purchase these gold bonds at the gold price of today, right? Almost like purchasing physical gold. These gold bonds can be purchased at price of gold today. जो भी आज का दाम हो उस पे ही निकाले जाते हैं ये. अब तो टाइमली निकालने लगा है गवर्नमेंट ऑफ भी, right? So they are bought at market price of gold. Now, if you purchase, let's say, physical gold, right? So let's say the price today is 52K. 52,000 चल रहा है ना, 52,000 चल रहा है. 10 grams of gold is 52. मैं imagine कर रहा हूँ ऐसे, right? So what is your gains, let's say, in the period of 5 years? Whatever is the price after 5 years, let's imagine it to be 73K. मैंने कहा 21K is the difference. 21,000 is your gains over this, right? इससे ज़्यादा तो कुछ नहीं मिलता. Do you get anything more than this when you purchase physical gold, right? So physical gold के केस में it remains up till this much amount. Now if you purchase a gold bond, right, 53K का है, हमने 10 ग्राम ही खरीदा, so after 5 years it goes to, let's say, 73K. So this is obviously my gain as I have in physical gold, right? So 21K तो ये मिला, sorry 52 है ये, 21K यहाँ पे था, 21K तो ये मिला, right? And then government says that we will also be giving you certain interest over this, right? So whatever amount of money that you have invested, we will give you back, let's say 2.1 या 2% rate of interest. 2% का इंटरेस्ट और देंगे अलग से. क्लियर? तो समझ में आ रहा होगा क्या हो रहा है. See, government also realizes that if we have to take a loan in terms of foreign currency from outside, the interest that we would pay out on that loan is definitely higher. And we are spending that foreign currency on purchasing gold, which is not at all useful. Thereby, utilize whatever foreign currency that you have to purchase your critical imports. And any gold investor, right, try and divert them towards this. Instead of investing in physical gold, invest into this. Yes or no? ठीक. Plus, government says, don't worry, I will also give you some taxation benefits. I will also give you some taxation benefits over this. बताओ better हुआ नहीं हुआ? बहुत instrumental है ये. We find that today a lot of people are buying gold bonds. A lot of investors, they are highly encouraged to buy gold bonds instead of physical gold. Right? Yeah, this is the story of gold bonds. इनफैक्ट सभी में देता है गवर्नमेंट, जब भी लाता है ना कुछ भी इंस्ट्रूमेंट नया गोल्ड के रिस्पेक्ट में, जनरली उसमें एनकरेज करने के लिए टैक्स बेनिफिट जरूर देता है. जैसे इसमें क्या देगा, कैपिटल गेन्स टैक्स नहीं लगाएंगे. ऑल यू नीड टू डू इज जस्ट पे इनकम टैक्स whatever you receive, right? So ये तो टैक्सेशन में जैसे ये दिख रहा है, इंटरेस्ट इनकम दिखा दो इसे, और ये जो गेन्स हैं इसको हटा दे, खत्म ही कर दे. सेकंड पे आऊं. इसमें फिजिकल गोल्ड नहीं मिलता, इसमें कंपोनेंट ही नहीं है फिजिकल गोल्ड का, राइट? आपने ये खरीदा, when this matures, let's say after 10 years it matures, whatever is going to be the price of gold, 10 grams of gold, you basically get the equivalent amount of price that day. ऐसा नहीं है कि फिजिकल गोल्ड देंगे, फिजिकल गोल्ड का कंपोनेंट ही नहीं है. वो कहाँ है? वो सेकंड स्कीम में हमारी, ठीक है. सेकंड, इसके बाद एक और लिख लो, गोल्ड मोनेटाइजेशन स्कीम. Gold monetization scheme, again a very important scheme that came up. This scheme was basically to target those households which may have gold which is not being utilized at home, which is not coming in consumption. होता ना कई बार we find that some gold jewelry may be lying and it is broken. Mothers may have kept it separately, that I will take this to jeweler whenever I go next. 5 बार 6 बार चले गए ज्वेलर के यहाँ, कुछ नया लेके आ रही हैं लेकिन वापस कभी ठीक नहीं कराया उसे, चल ही रहा है वो विद द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. देन देयर आर सर्टेन ओल्ड एज कपल्स, ओल्ड एज पीपल, है ना, दे मे हैव अ लॉट ऑफ ज्वेलरी एंड दे आर नॉट कमिंग इनटू कंजम्पशन, राइट? एंड एट द सेम टाइम दे मे हैव अ नीड ऑफ रेगुलर सोर्सेज ऑफ इनकम, राइट? देन वी ऑल्सो हैव टेम्पल्स वेयर अ लॉट ऑफ गोल्ड इज डोनेटेड इन इंडिया. अगेन दे डोंट फाइंड एनी यूज फॉर इट, right? So what government of India did was, government of India said, if any such institution has surplus amount of gold with them, you bring the gold to us, we will check for purity, we will tell you then and there, right? You bring 22 carat, we'll tell you. You bring 18 carat, we'll tell you, right? And you will mention this, right, that this much grams of gold has been deposited by the person, so much, so and so, right? So under your name, every bit of detail is mentioned there. Then, with your permission, the gold is melted. Bars are made out of it, and these bars are given to jewelers, right? So, by giving it to jewelry sector, what happens is that the gold which was hoarded in the economy, right, which was not being utilized, now comes back into consumption cycle again. Jewelry बन जाएगी, बिक जाएगी भाई market में, so it comes into consumption again, right? And your money, your gold ornament or that gold basically is fixed for a certain period of time, let's say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, right? So for this fixed time period, government will keep giving you some interest at regular intervals. Government कहेगा, for example, I will give you returns at, let's say 3% or 2% or 1%, whatever it is, right? I will give you some returns. मान लीजिए आपको दे रहा है 2% returns, right? So you get a regular source of income. Imagine for old age couples, they get a regular source of income. Temples again, they get regular source of income. They can carry out their activities. Now, जो service करना चाहते हैं, meals arrange करना चाहते हैं, मेंटेनेंस वर्क कराना चाहते हैं टेम्पल के लिए, ऑल ऑफ दैट कैन बी डन अगेंस्ट दैट गोल्ड. And then after the end of that stipulated time period, government will give you physical gold back, same amount. Once the time period is over, government will give you back that same amount of gold. भैया ये लो आपका गोल्ड. तो विन विन सिचुएशन है, इकोनॉमी के लिए भी है, इंडिविजुअल के लिए भी है, और सभी के लिए यहाँ पे. ठीक, लिख दो. Gold monetization scheme was to attract those people who have gold jewelry, which is no longer useful for consumption, So stop. After approval from the owner, jewelry is melted. Into gold bars and given to jewelry sector. The jewelry is melted into bars, into gold bars and given to jewelry sector. Stop. The owner gets a regular payment of interest from the government and after the fixed time period, the owner can take back their gold in physical form. ठीक है, समझ आया? With this we come to the end of markets. Any difficulty, any question that you have? So I started with derivatives. Derivative instrument में ही I explained you P notes, participatory notes. Then I went to mutual funds, where I discussed all three types of them. पहले NAV discuss किया, concept of NAV, net asset value. Then I discussed in it all three forms: equity, index-based mutual funds, gilt-based mutual funds, or even your balanced mutual funds. Then I discussed open and closed-ended mutual funds. Then ETFs में भी सब कुछ डिस्कस कर दिया. गोल्ड ETF कर लिया, सिल्वर ETF भी आता है ऐसे, है ना. Then we have this CPSE ETF. Then we had Bharat 22 ETF. And then finally we discussed gold-based instruments in the economy. Gold-based instruments में we had gold bonds, right, which you can now purchase. लिखा आपने ये, which you can purchase from anywhere these days. You can purchase it from banks, post offices, anywhere. And then we discussed gold monetization scheme. डाउट है कोई? Okay, so in my next class I will start with balance of payment and exchange rate. ठीक है, अच्छा. कैसे मिल सकता है? तो मेल्ट कर दिया. ऑर्नामेंट नहीं मिलेगा, जो लिखा है वहाँ पे क्वांटिटी वो मिलेगा उसे। लास्ट लाइन क्या लिखा है यार हमने, बताना। लास्ट लाइन क्या लिखा है हमने, बच्चा पूछ रहा है। लास्ट लाइन, हाँ Poonam, the last line is that the owner can take back the gold in physical form after the end of the time period. ठीक है।